Bonus stage.
Okay, it's final segment here on Not the Footy Show 228. Warwick Nicholson, Rob Cox, and we're both unabashed fans of the young Philip Gould and James Bracey. They do Six Tackles with Gus. It drops, I think, every Wednesday sometime on the Nine Podcast Network. We're welcome to join that podcast network if you'd like, Channel 9. We'll just agree with everything Gus says. I'm sure that'll work.
We're available. Just a couple of head nodders. Yes,
Yep.
Gus.
Yes, Gus. Yes, 3 bags full, Gus. Speaking of, though, I was obviously working with the Warriors this year, and something came up really early on in the show, and I am surprised I haven't seen it really pushed across Twitter the last couple of days. But there is a push from the Warriors to have as many games in New Zealand next year as is humanly possible for the Warriors to play. That doesn't mean that every game is a home game for the Warriors at Mount Smart Stadium. What they are suggesting is that the vast majority of the games that the Warriors play next year are taken to New Zealand. So you've got your 12 home games at Mount Smart, and then you can play, I reckon a realistic number would have been about 20 of the 24 games being played in New Zealand, and you get 8 other matches taken from the clubs who would have normally had home games, and you bring them to Dunedin, you bring them to Christchurch, you bring them to Wellington, Hamilton, etc. You burst my balloon really quickly when I messaged you about this the other day and said that the NRL's pretty much already poo-hooed the idea. But what really grinds my gears about that is that the Warriors had no choice whatsoever this last year and a half. They had to come to Australia to keep the competition going. Why is it not feasible to have something organised a year out for next year, where the local governments for these New Zealand places, they work with the Manlys, they work with the Tigers, they work with the Newcastle management and say, come over, we'll pay you some good money and you can have a game over here. Like, why was it dismissed, as you're about to give me more details than that, by the NRL so quickly? It doesn't make any sense to me. To me, this is a great idea.
I agree that it's a good idea. I agree that it'd be nice to pay back those Warriors players and staff that have spent a long time away from home. But I think you've got to look at it with a different view, and that is the Warriors want to be in the Australian competition. Yeah.
Okay.
So when there's a pandemic that nobody could have ever foreseen, they need to either play or don't. And if they don't, the comp would have still happened. They just would have been given a bye. Every team that was meant to play the Warriors would have been given a bye and been given the 2 points.
Yeah.
And that's not. And by the way, I'm not diminishing the fact that the effort that the Warriors have made to be here. They want to play football.
Yep.
Their club, their management, their owners want to be in the NRL competition. But then for the next year, 2022, to grant them 20 games at home. And I know that you're saying that they're not all at home. There'd be 12 home and then, maybe 6 or 8 elsewhere.
Yep.
Would be a distinct advantage to them in a non-pandemic year. And I don't know if the clubs that would have to travel would be all that keen to lose their home ground advantage, their gate takings, and pay for their, possibly their New South Wales team and their NRL
would
team.
they have to do that? I guess is my counter question to that.
Well,
because if you're
I don't know.
using local government who wants
pay?
the game, because the tourism factor,
Yeah.
like Manly did this with the Warriors before. They've gone to Christchurch for a bunch of years. The Tigers did it a bunch of times. The Bulldogs did it a few times. It's not unheralded. It's not like this never happened before.
No, I get it. There's part of me that agrees with you for the payback, for the the loyalty and the hardship that the Warriors have been through. But on the other side of the coin, if your team, like Penrith, for example, I think they had 12,000 people there the other night. That's a fairly good gate to get. And I know that it's not, that it's, maybe that the local government could say to the Panthers, well, we'll guarantee you 150 grand and we'll pay you way to come over. And I'm just using the Panthers as an example. But do the Panthers want to risk their home game? Maybe not. What I think should happen is maybe the NRL should do this and say, all right, we can't pay you back with every game being in New Zealand, but for the next 2 years, 2022 and 2023, we're going to play an extra 4 games per year in New Zealand. And we'll negotiate with the clubs to make sure that they're not out of pocket. So that means that in the next 2 years, the Warriors get an extra 8 weeks at home. I think that there has to be something, even if it's token like that.
Even if it's 2, honestly, even if it's 2 extra games.
Yeah, it should be more than 2.
Yeah.
I just can't see that. I can't see the NRL saying, "Hey, Warriors, thanks for everything. By the way, just sit back this year. You won't have to ride on an aeroplane until the finals, hopefully for you guys."
In saying that, just while you touched on the whole thing that they wouldn't take the games, we've also had this discussion multiple times in the last few years about NRL clubs being forced to take a game to the country of New South Wales.
Yes, and I still think they should do that.
Okay, so there is a 17th team coming in whenever it is, 2025, whenever.
Yep.
The second team that has to come in at the same time, I still maintain you need 2 teams because it creates an extra TV game and extra money for everybody. To me, it doesn't make sense having a team not play every week.
Yeah, I get that.
Don't you want to take the game around New Zealand and build up more of that affinity if you're going to potentially put a team in Wellington?
Are you?
I don't know, but if they rock up, does it make that case stronger? I don't see a huge downside to taking these games because our crowd situation, it's a much better than it was looking a year ago. Like we didn't think we'd have crowds for potentially multiple years.
Yeah.
But NRL crowds have never been, apart from a few teams here and there that are really always good gate people. They're not the ironclad, we're going to get 15, we're going to get 20 every week. It's just not, that's not the way it is. So I don't think the whole we've got to look after our own fans argument sticks. I'm not saying you're making that claim, but I don't think that argument sticks like it would in a Premier League situation or a NFL situation, etc., where they're selling out every ticket years in advance.
Yeah. Look, for one, I don't think the second new team should be in New Zealand. I don't agree with that.
I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm not saying that's my view.
I know it's a possibility because just as much as I think Newtown Jets are a possibility or the Bears are a possibility of coming back, everything's possible. Wherever there's hope or whatever there's life, there's hope.
It's because you know what the NRL does? It defies impossible. It's defying and it does something with possible and defying.
Defy impossible.
Yeah,
that's the catch cry of the comp this year, mate.
Poor old Ray Warren stuffed it up in the first game. He said
get on board or get off.
Okay,
right.
Sorry.
Here's the thing. I actually think that the next team. I've always said this. I've said it all along. The next team after the new Brisbane team or Queensland team should be Perth or Adelaide. If we're going to be a legitimate national rugby league, we need to expand into an area that is not a home rugby league. We've done it with Melbourne. They're successful, and I think we should, people say, oh, but it's 3.5 hours flight to Perth. So what?
Yeah, they should get on a plane to Townsville sometime soon.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Or Darwin. Try and go to Darwin.
I was just there. It's a long way.
Arnhem Land, you know what it's like.
I do.
Look, going back to the Warriors, though, mate, they definitely deserve something.
Throw me a frickin' bone here. I'm the boss. Need the info.
It was a lady who was interviewing him, and she said, so what about this suggestion that the Warriors take 20 home games or all of their home games next year, all games that they're going to play at home, apart from the finals? And he said, oh, well, no, I don't think that will. I'm not quoting him here, but he was not very negative about it, but he made mention that it's probably not going to happen.
Okay.
In saying that, I don't know how much of it he'd really thought about the idea
or digested it beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was almost like a question without notice. I think Andrew Abdo is a great administrator, and I think he will very much consider, as will PVL, about a suggestion for the Auckland-based team to be rewarded, and for New Zealand in that matter to be rewarded. So we'll see, mate. I know why Gus would have mentioned it, because Gus is now part of the organisation.
Yeah.
And that's what Gus thinks would be the right thing to do. And I tend to agree. I just don't know about every game. And I know that the argument would be, yeah, but they've had every game here. They've spent every game here.
Mm.
Yep, they did. But pandemic, these uncertain times,
Speaking of uncertain times, not the footy show, we came back for another year. This show, its first incarnation was at the 2009 finals. We did some videos around that, and then we started the actual show itself in 2010. So this is season 11 or 12. I can't do my maths, but it's been around for a long time. This is 228 episode. I know you've been around since pretty much the turn of 100, early 100s. And mate, we've somehow produced an hour and 15
of dribble.
So you've got what you paid for, kids.
Not the footy show.
Pepsi.